The United Kingdom is gearing up for a crucial general election as the country emerges from recession with the fastest growth in 2 years. Voters are heading to the polls on July 4th to elect a new government, and the stakes are high. The election comes at a pivotal moment as the UK seeks to revitalize its economy and address pressing issues such as healthcare, education, and national security. The incumbent Conservative Party, led by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, is facing stiff competition from the Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer. Now, the Liberal Democrats, Greens, and other parties are also vying for seats in Parliament. Key campaign issues include economic growth, public spending, and the country's future relationship with Europe. The election outcome is expected to shape the UK's political landscape for years to come. Joining me on the news to discuss the forthcoming elections in the United Kingdom is a political commentator, Nathaniel Ogunniyi. Thank you for joining me on the news. Now, how is the UK's emergence from recession expected to shape voter priorities and also influence their decision-making process in the upcoming polls?
The UK has just come out of recession. We had a short, sharp recession from the end of last year to earlier this year. The economy is now predicted to grow by about 1% this year, which is, of course, better than recession, but not quite as good as the government would prefer. I think you'll find a lot of voters are unhappy with the government's economic performance, but there is good news on the horizon. Interest rates, which determine the rate that people pay for their mortgages, are set to come down. Economic growth is set to pick up, and the Conservative Party has a strong record on employment. Since they came into office in 2010, there are 4 million more jobs than there were before. So I think there is good news on the economy. It's just yet to filter through.
Now, in the wake of the recession, do you anticipate that voters will place a higher priority on economic security compared to other issues such as social justice, environmental concerns, or even national security?
So national security will definitely be a big theme, particularly in the wake of war in Europe. War in Ukraine, I think, has shaped a lot of minds and made people focus more on defense and security issues. But the economy continues to play an important part. The UK has a very strong financial services sector. Indeed, we're top in the world for some parts of financial services, including insurance and foreign exchange trading. There are other areas of the economy, including tech, which the UK is quite strong at. The UK has more billion-dollar tech firms than anywhere else in Europe, right? And so that's important for the economy.
Now, how are the ongoing conflict, of course, in Ukraine and the rising global tensions likely to affect the election discourse surrounding defense and security, particularly for the UK?
So the Conservative Party have traditionally been strong on defense. The Conservative Party has traditionally polled better. If you ask people who do you trust more to keep our country safe, the Conservative Party have always polled better. And the Conservative record in government on defence is quite strong. The Conservative Party have taken defence spending to 55 billion, so 55 billion pounds, which is the highest level it's ever been. They're raising it to 2.5% of GDP, which is far above the target set by NATO, but it's far above the levels spent by many similar European countries. Equally, the United Kingdom has a defence pact with Australia and with the United States. So we collaborate with Australia and the United States to build defence submarines, and that, of course, brings British jobs and things like that. So the Conservative Party, has a strong record on defence. Equally, the Labour Party are trying to get their message out. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, spoke on Monday, which was a bank holiday in the UK. He spoke on Monday about defence and security, saying that Labour will hold a security review if they were to be elected. But the difficulty with that is a review after an election doesn't tell us what you'd like to do. And so it's difficult to ask people to vote for you if you don't tell them what you'd actually like to do or how you keep them safe. You contrast that with the Conservative Party. The Conservative Minister for Veterans right now, a member of the Cabinet, John Mercer, he's made some strong announcements on defence for veterans, including 70 million for veteran healthcare and for veteran skills, helping them get jobs after they've left the military. So you have to contrast the two.
Now, let's talk about voter demographics here, such as age, and location. I mean, do you think this will shape attitudes towards the economic policies and also political loyalty?
Yes, of course. So let's start with age, for instance. Age is a big factor in elections. Traditionally in the UK, the older you get, the more likely you are to vote for the Conservative Party. So it often starts that people, when they're young, will vote for the Labour Party or other smaller parties, and as they get older, they lean more towards the Conservatives. Some say that's because the Conservatives tend to favour lower taxes, and of course, the older you get, the more you're likely to pay taxes. So that's been a big factor. Equally, now we see that the Labour Party have announced that they would like to extend the voting age to 16. So they would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in general elections, which has never been done in the UK before. The Conservative Party have talked about national service, so ensuring that 18-year-olds either spend some time in the military or volunteering in civil resilience.
Okay, now what impact do you anticipate this election in terms of outcome will have, on the UK's defense and security relationships, particularly with European partners, the US and all of its other allies?
So our strong relationship with the United States is likely to continue no matter who's in government. But the important thing to note is that the Conservative Party in government has had closer relationship with the Republicans, generally speaking. And so you look at a Republican president, we're likely to have Donald Trump in the White House. If you look at a Republican president like him, you're likely to work better with a Conservative leader in Westminster, the UK, rather than a Labour one. That said, either party is likely to have strong relationships. And then we look at the EU, for instance, the EU are undergoing their own elections. The EU will have European Parliament elections, and that will lead to a new European Parliament, as well as new senior ministers within the European Union. They will be looking to have a strong defence relationship with the UK. But for the UK has often spent more on defence than many of its European countries, including Germany, including France. And so I think the UK will be encouraging them to keep up with its defence spending.
Nathaniel Ogunniyi, thank you so much for your time on the news.